Please welcome to the stage Director of the Defense Information Systems Agency's J2 Intelligence Directorate, Army Colonel Richard Leach.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank DARPA, Dr. Fisher, and the IO2 team for inviting me today to talk. Now that John set the stage about the adversary, let's talk about what that threat affects and how it means to the DoD operations and, more importantly, to the warfighter. It's hard to turn on the news and not be reminded of how conflict continues to change our world. Since February of 22, we have watched Russia and Ukraine battle it out on the European continent. And since October of 23, a new conflict, but from a very old war, has stirred up in the Middle East with Israel, Iran, and its proxies, all of which we've continued to watch how that is managed both in the physical battle space as well as cyberspace, and the use of new technologies and new capabilities that are all driven by software. Though not at a level of physical war, a conflict of information, influence, and cyberspace is ongoing today with China, as you saw earlier in that video, and as we have talked across the DoD, both my boss, the director of DISA, as well as the new DC commander. In March of 1990, I stepped into uniform as an infantry private. I was learning how to use PRC-77 radios and SINGARS radios. I was running twisted pair cable line out to field phones for us to communicate with each other. Now fast forward today. We have software-defined radios. We have networks on the battlefield. We have drones. We have technology which is far advancing our ability to conduct warfare. But as such, the enemy is not far behind us. One particular is catching up at a very fast pace. We now have enemy cyber threats that maneuver through and can create effects in the physical, the logical, and the cognitive spaces in which we operate. Our ability for the U.S. military and the industrial complex in the U.S. to leap forward in technology is nothing short of phenomenal, but those do have some drawbacks. Military doctrine, policy, and international law at times are challenged on how it can be applied when it comes to cyberspace. Why? Because many times, a lot of those who deal in doctrine, policy, and law don't understand this battlefield and the digitized world in which we live in. That is changing. We have to change with it. Some of the better leaders I've worked with at Cyber Command and some of the service cyber components are opening up and giving ideas for developing and shaping that doctrine to the younger generation who have grown up with Xbox game controllers in their hands and smartphones from the time they were in kindergarten. Technology is constantly adapting and becoming more interoperable. Different disruptive technologies such as drones and AI are reshaping the battlefield. These technological advances are driven by software over which they operate. We must defend this. To truly prosecute the next war at the speed of cyberspace, we've got no option but to make sure our doctrine, our policy, and our laws keep pace with that modern battlefield, as well as the adversary. Otherwise, we're going to go into battle handicapped, or worse yet, disabled, before the fighting even starts. Readiness. That can't start when the conflict does. We have to do that now, as well as our modernization and the tools which we bring to combat must support lethality to quickly win battles and to end wars before they become too costly for us and our allies. The speed of communications through technology is a key component of lethality in the modern battlefield. We must protect that. Our ability to deliver and maintain secure networks, which will deny adversaries any advantage over disrupting our operations, is a priority. As we modernize our military, and we will continue doing so based upon advanced networking, we'll do this based upon advanced networking of our different battlefield capabilities. That technology is going to be dependent on the software we develop for it. We have to look hard at software development lifecycle and our DevSecOps environments. We can no longer assume that lifecycle nor those environments are safe. As we pointed out earlier, supply chain is a key target for our adversaries. Whether that supply chain is at the beginning of a software cycle or operates through the maintenance and sustainment of those systems. Our developed environments, they can be targeted physically, logically, or cognitively, such as those supply chains that bring in the hardware, logically through remote access tools or possible network exploitations, intrusions, and lastly, cognitively by the workforce that operates and maintains it. The loss of security and compromise by the adversary to these environments will result in the loss of the next conflict before we even know it. You've heard a lot already this morning about the adversary. Their capabilities and targeting of our key systems and functions of our critical infrastructure and key resources have made the news quite a bit. Those are the things that keep me up at night. I think we are in a new version of the great game, though this time there are more players and the prize is global control. Just as we are learning to adapt to this new battlefield, so is the adversary. And in some cases, their learning and modernization is based upon stealing of our technology, our intellectual property, and our own capabilities. The adversary, whether a state actor or criminal, is not going to play by the same rules that we do, nor do they have the same ethics or morality. The adversary may appear to be your friend, maybe appear to be your coworker, business partner, or even vendor. We must be vigilant. To be an adversary in this domain or this battlefield, you don't necessarily need a large army or a huge military complex to operate from. The low cost of entry into this fighting domain allows many people and more adversaries to participate and is changing the way we look at the threats in our networks. Unlike the physical battlefield, when the adversary takes casualties, they simply can either respawn new characters or personas and rebuild virtual infrastructure to the cloud in a fraction of the time to get back into the fight. The adversary's actions are purposeful. Their intent and abilities, along with their potential to impact mission execution of our forces, is critical to our nation's security. We cannot let their campaigns continue to impose cost on us. We must impose cost on the adversary. How do we do this? Make them spend more time going after things that are of little value or complicate their abilities to gain intelligence or gain capability over us. We need to lure them into cyber engagement areas of our choice, not theirs. Imagine the situation, which was talked about earlier, where our tanks, our helicopters, our planes, and our ships, missile defense systems, all cease working as we go into an offensive campaign. The chaos and the possible loss of U.S. service members' lives are on that balance. All this can be due to basically crafty manipulation and exploitation to the software of those systems or to the network which connects all those systems on the battlefield. The scenario I just described could be a result of a long planned out campaign by one adversary or many working together. As I mentioned before, the adversary is going to try to get into our DevSecOps environments. They're going to try to conduct reconnaissance. They're going to steal intellectual property. Or they're going to try to change the source code which those military systems that we operate depend upon. As we talk about targeting the code, that places continuous modernization and establishing lethality through network weapon systems at risk. The integrity of that code is paramount. Yet lurking in the shadows, ever evolving, are sophisticated adversaries determined to find weaknesses and flaws in the very language that dictates our system's behavior. We often talk about cyber attacks in terms of data breaches or network intrusions, but at a fundamental level, these attacks almost always boil down to one thing: the manipulation of code. Adversaries aren't just breaking into our digital homes, they're actively trying to rewrite the rules from within them. So how do they do it? So let's peel back a couple layers we've talked about before. First, They relentlessly hunt for software vulnerabilities. Some examples of that are obviously are SQL injections and buffer overflows. Those simple things that we must keep heed to as we develop software are critical, because those injects or those capabilities of those threats of vulnerabilities can have significant impact to our service members on the battlefield. Beyond these well-known flaws, adversaries are also increasing the leverage of insecure deserialization. This is more complex but equally vulnerable, where an application, when processing structured data, can be tricked into executing malicious code embedded within that data. It's like unwrapping a gift only to find out there's a bomb inside. Sometimes the threat originates much earlier in the process. Here, adversaries target the very processes in which software is built and distributed. They might compromise a legitimate software vendor, inject malicious code directly into the products before they ever even reach us. The SolarWinds attack is a stark reminder of this danger. Once the adversary gains a foothold, they will focus on shifting privilege escalations and persistence. An initial breach might grant low-level access, but adversaries rarely stop there. They're actively searching for vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, which will allow them to elevate their privileges and move from a standard user to administrator to gain complete control over the system. To ensure their accesses aren't lost every reboot, they implement persistent mechanisms. They modify system files. They create hidden processes or alter startup configurations, ensuring their malicious codes run automatically and silently maintaining through even the most secure environments we have. The implications of these attacks and methods are profound on the way we conduct battle and support to our service members. They lead data breaches. They In critical infrastructure, such attacks would have catastrophic real-world consequences. The cyber landscape is a dynamic one. Adversaries will continue to innovate and find new ways to target the very code which defines our digital world. But by understanding their methodologies, by prioritizing security in every line of code which we write, and by fostering a culture of vigilance, we can build more resilient systems and better protect ourselves against the evolving threats in the digital age. So how do we manage this? How do we do this? One of the things I'm trying to attempt at DISA is to build out intelligence support acquisitions, through which my office will be integrated and working with the program developers, with their contractors, with the system designers, to make sure that they understand what the threats are out there, how their advances and capabilities are working, what is actually being targeted by our systems and through our systems. So this goes back down to readiness, which brings it all back. We must have the right people with the right trained experiences and the right systems now before the conflict starts. Again, I would like to thank DARPA, Dr. Fisher, and the IoT team which has invited me here to speak this morning. Thank you very much.